I'd like to call the November 8th meeting of the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee to order. If the minute taker can show all the aldermen are here now. And first of all, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 25th, 2007? Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have three major items tonight. The first is a report and recommendation on case number 07-V8 Klein Homes at 5 North 101 and 5 North 125 Wooddale Road to rezone from annexation R1 to R2 to allow a 12-lot subdivision. Roger, you want to take that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to add a little information to that, it is up for rezoning this evening from R1 to R2 pending annexation, and this is to allow a 12-lot subdivision, excuse me, for the construction and use of 12 single-family detached homes. The subdivision will provide detention facilities and a roadway which will be dedicated back to the city. The proposed subdivision meets all R2 zoning bulk regulations. And I do believe that the petitioner is here and has some form of a presentation if you would like them to proceed.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Marshall Subak, S-U-B-A-C-H. I'm the attorney. On behalf of the petitioner, Scott Klein, I'll send her card to the minute taker. It has all my information. Mr. Klein is present with me tonight, as well as the project engineer, Alex Ho. I know you guys have a long agenda tonight, so the good news is I will keep the engineering to a minimum unless there's any very detailed question. We're here for the property at 5N 101 and 5N 125 Wooddale Road. We're seeking the annex property in the city of Wooddale and have it rezoned to R2. When you evaluate the project tonight, I'm going to ask you to evaluate the project based upon the facts and the merits. Don't evaluate the project based upon the attorney that's presenting the case. And please don't evaluate the project based upon the petitioner, Scott Klein. It's really a project that, in my opinion, should be approved. This property is near Wooddale Road and Elizabeth Drive. Currently, it's vacant and unincorporated. By city code, upon annexation, the property will come in as R1. That's by default. What I mean by that is if there's property anywhere within the city of Wooddale, I think a couple years ago we had some property in the industrial park that was unincorporated. Upon annexation, that came in automatically as R1. Petitioner seeking approval for a 12-lot subdivision. All the lots are in excess of 10,000 square feet. Each of the lots have a lot width of 80 feet. All the lots meet the R2 zoning requirements. There are no variances that are being requested. There's a full cul-de-sac for the project that's been approved by the fire district. I believe this committee previously saw a project where there was a variance for the cul-de-sac as well as a right-of-way. With this revised plan, those variances have been eliminated. Some of the concerns about that I heard previously when I watched the tapes were about stormwater. There are 2 stormwater basins that are going to be constructed on this property, and there's 5 stormwater inlets towards the rear of the property that will collect the stormwater and bring it to the front to the basins for a controlled release. The basins that are being constructed are actually larger than required. Based upon this subdivision, the petitioner would need 1.52 acre feet of storage. We're actually providing 1.93 acre feet. Petitioner will fully comply with the city tree preservation ordinance. In fact, if you look at the plan, there's a 20-foot strip along Wooddale Road of additional screening that's being provided. And I know, as I said up there before, you always hear that every developer is going to save all the trees. In this case, it's actually true. This property now is unincorporated. My client has designed this property and the top foundations to minimize the amount of tree removal. Because it's unincorporated right now, my client could actually clear cut that property. There's nothing that prohibits him in the county from cutting all the trees down. He has not done that because he's trying to do a quality development with the trees for the city of Wooddale. The biggest issue tonight is going to be the rezoning. The comprehensive plan calls that this should be a moderate density single family. What is that defined as? About 4 units or 4 houses per acre, which based upon our acreage would give us 20 lots. I know a lot of you are saying, well, who cares about the comprehensive plan? We don't follow it. And actually, that's not true. City of Wooddale has always followed the comprehensive plan, and that's the blueprint for the city. By law, it's supposed to be what's supposed to be followed when determining zoning. So under the comprehensive plan, we would get 20 lots. The question is, what is around that property? I have a couple handouts for everybody. Pass those down, Mr. West. So this is this map shows what the existing zoning is around the property. The subject property has been colored in orange. What you see in light blue is the unincorporated properties that are in DuPage County, not annexed to the city of Wooddale. What you see in yellow is the property that has been annexed to Wooddale, that is R1. And then what you see in green, which is surrounding this property and contiguous in 2 different locations, is what's zoned as R3. So the property right now, again, has R3 to the north and R3 to the east. Kitty corner, what's not shown, up there, actually the property is zoned R8. That's where some of the townhouses are, as well as the condominiums on Elizabeth Drive. Under R3, my client would be approved for 16 lots with no variances. In addition, under his current plan, if he restructures the detention basins, he can actually acquire 13 lots under R2 with no variances. The proposed subdivision of 12 lots is 25% less than the petitioner would get under an R3 zoning. Under an R1 zoning, the property will yield 7 lots. Unfortunately, 7 lots makes the project unbuildable. There are very large infrastructure costs to this project. They include bringing water to the site, the collection and the installation of stormwater detention basins, the construction of a full street and cul-de-sac. The infrastructure alone for this project is estimated at $1 million. Quite honestly, I wish I was before you with an R3 zoning with a 16-lot subdivision so that we would have something to give on this project, but it was applied for as R2 because, quite honestly, my client thought that's what fit Wooddale the best, and that's what's best for, and highest and best use for this property. I would ask yourself, as you think about Wooddale in general, how many lots around town are actually over 10,000 square feet? Not many. I've heard that this is should be the gateway to Wooddale, and I actually agree with that, but I think a 12-lot subdivision will be the gateway to Wooddale. These are going to be higher-end homes built of all natural materials, and again, 12 lots with over 10,000 square feet is nothing that Wooddale should be ashamed of. If the R2 is not approved again, this project cannot go forward. The council previously had an opportunity on what's previously known as the Newman property, was a 4-lot subdivision. Council, through some opposition, didn't want to approve the 4 lots. That gentleman actually never annexed to the city of Wooddale. He ended up building under the county. When my client has brought this proposed subdivision to the county officials have advised him that they would accept the project with a 12-lot subdivision with just a couple minor variations. Now, how do you make your decision tonight? Do you follow the concerns of residents in the area, many of which are unincorporated? I ask you to actually follow the law. And what the law is, there's actually standards for rezoning. These standards are by city code and Illinois statute. It's my last handout. I've heard the council doesn't like to get stuff last minute. That's right, somebody from the 4th Ward. The zoning standards, again, this is nothing new. This is by Illinois law in our city code. The first factor that the council or the committee should consider is the existing uses and the rezoning of the nearby properties. The map shows you the nearby properties are already zoned R3. These lots will be larger than the lots that are R3 along Cedar Avenue, and they'll be larger than the lots that are contained along Elizabeth Court. I certainly, again, think that R3 would actually fit here, but as R2, my client felt that this would be a good transition area. Since you do have some R1 that's further south, this should be a good transition area from R2, then into the R3 as you head north. The next factor you see is the extent which property values are diminished by the existing zoning. Under the R1 zone, if this comes in as R1, the project can't get developed. The rezoning of this property will increase values not only for this property, but also for properties in the area. The next factor is the extent in which the proposed zoning promotes the general health, safety, and welfare for the citizens of Wooddale. Quality single-family homes is what presents the quality life we have in Wooddale. The values of the homes will be some of the highest in Wooddale, and again, something this can be the gateway to Wooddale. The next factor that the committee needs to look at is the relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship for the petitioner. It has been said many times tonight, the hardship will be that if this is not approved as R2, the project cannot go forward. There'll be no additional tax base for the city, no additional residents to support future commercial developments for the city, and more importantly, no control for the city. What does the city gain? The city gains stormwater management. This property used to, actually currently as it stands vacant, about half the property drains toward Cedar Avenue, and the remaining part of the property drains to the front to Wooddale Road. There's actually some houses that are along Cedar Avenue that previously used to have a trench between their backyards to control the water. It would run off this property and run down Cedar Avenue. And I don't know if how many people remember the Frawley residence. That was a house that had the driveway that would go down. As my 8-year term there, over the first 4 years, I was probably there 3 or 4 times watching their basement get filled up with water. And it was part of from this property and all these vacant properties that would run to the east. Another one of the factors is the city's actually going to expand its current boundaries. When you go to the State of Wooddale address that's done every year by the village of the Itasca Bank, what do you hear from residents? How come we haven't incorporated more areas in the 4th Ward? How come we have a pet cemetery that's operating? How come we have properties on Tioga Trail that have a septic that aren't working? The reason is those properties aren't incorporated, and the city has no control over those. They're out of our jurisdiction. How many times have we heard, boy, if we had more people in Wooddale, we could attract more retail, we could do more things. This development will do that. Finally, it's my understanding that the city continues to have trouble with some of the stormwater problems with the detention basins along Elizabeth Court. Again, my client's willing to sit down with staff and with the owner of that detention basin, which is a private individual, to see if any can be worked in conjunction to handle that stormwater problem. The next factor is the 5th factor. It's the suitability of the property for the purposes for which it is presently zoned. Under default, again, this property gets zoned R1, and it's unincorporated. There's no value to the city. It brings no useful tax dollars to the city. Next factor for the city to consider is the length of time the property has been vacant. Property previously had 2 premises or 2 single-family homes in the property. One was demolished about 6 years ago, and the other one was demolished about 2 years ago. The next factor is the compatibility of existing zoning vis-a-vis the compatibility of the existing zoning. Again, the comprehensive plan says that this should be a medium density housing which allow for 20 lots. We're actually here tonight just seeking 12 lots under the R2. The next factor and the final factor is the evidence of community need for the proposed use. This is a single-family home development. Single-family home developments are the cornerstone of any community. These are developments that the city should be welcoming with open arms and actually seeking out. Finally, some of the other benefits the city will get. It's estimated that annual taxes for this, once fully improved, just for the city portion, not for the school district, not for the fire district or the library district, but the city will receive about $975 annually per house based upon an estimated market value of $800,000 per home. City will receive about $145,000 for building permits once the subdivision is completed. And again, to summarize, this is a classic transition piece. R3 surrounds it. there's R1 to the south. As you drive north, this can be the gateway to the city as a transition to R2 for the 12-lot subdivisions. With that, I thank you for your time and consideration, and welcome to answer any questions you may have of myself or the petitioner or the engineer.
Mr. Subak, you're a breath of fresh air. You covered this well and told us everything we needed to know. Do we have any questions? Mr. Alderman Felice.
A couple questions. You said you're going to leave most of the trees. That's because we already cut down the ones we needed to get rid of, correct?
The trees that were removed were all dead trees. Again, as the property is unincorporated, there is no tree cutting ordinance in the county that would prevent my client.
I understand-
from
I understand
clear-cutting it.
No.
After tonight, we're fully compliant with the tree cutting ordinance for Wooddale.
Another question. When you were talking about materials for the building of the homes, are we talking brick or vinyl?
If I can have the developer answer that.
They would be mostly brick homes.
Are we talking mostly 40% or mostly
No, I would say
65?
75%. I don't believe in all brick homes. Some people want something a little bit different. There'd be
Right.
no vinyl in the project whatsoever. And the siding that would go on would be a cement board siding, like the Hardy panel.
Alderman Coles.
On these homes that you're going to build, you said 75% of it would be brick. Suppose somebody wanted it 100%, would you build them at 100% or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, but
All right, I'm just curious because I think 100% brick house is better than a vinyl. Better than a house that is only 50% or 75%.
that would be
My personal opinion.
it would be a minimum standard of 75%. Certainly, a lot of people would like 100% brick, but some wouldn't. So it'd be minimum 75%.
Okay.
Alderman Lewitton.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Klein, how many homes are required for you to make a fair profit? Right now, you want 12 homes in an R2, and an R1 would be 7. Is there a number in between that's profitable to you?
In this kind of market, no. That's why we're at 12.
In other words, if you had 11, it would not be a profitable?
It all depends on what the market is. Right now, the market is pretty bad, which is why we're at 12.
Okay. And now you said that it would take over $1 million to put in sewage. Is that correct?
All the infrastructure, yes.
Not just sewer, it was up to $1 million. That's not just for the sewer, that's all the infrastructure, which includes bringing water to the property, connecting to the sewer lines, and installation of the storm sewer, as well as the installation of the street.
I got a question for Jeff. Jeff, when the Elkhorns were interested in annexation to inquire about it, you sent them a letter saying that the water would cost about $2,000 a year in an annexation. Why would it cost only $2,000 for this one house and $1 million for these houses?
Alderman Lewitton, that was the impact to the water system. That is a set fee that all people that tap into the water system pay. On top of that, they would have to pay to have the water extended to their property, and that would be their entire own expense.
So they have to pay, these people have to pay $2,000 per home to tap in also?
Correct.
Above all other monies they have to spend?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both.
May I ask what actual changes were made from the original proposal, by the way?
The original proposal had a half a cul-de-sac that was completed at the end. The new proposal has a full cul-de-sac that meets all the city requirements. There was also a variance for the right-of-way. Again, now there is no request for variance on the right-of-way. So it's a project that's coming before you with no variance requested.
Alderman Wesley.
Roger, Mr. Clicker, can I ask you a question? Again, it's a project that is for us, that the fire department is not here again to answer questions. Have we had a meeting with the fire department and no letters are attached to this, that they gave their approval, and who met with the fire department before this was going?
There was a meeting between Assistant Chief Scott Schneider and John Forrest, and I believe, I'm not sure, Ross was there. And the fire department had no problems with the layout of the roadway and the cul-de-sac.
My question to you then, if we had that meeting, why did we not receive a letter from our staff saying that you had that meeting and there was no problem?
I believe that letter was originally sent forward. Was not part of this packet, but it had been brought up because that particular question has been asked before.
Mr. Wesley, may I comment on that?
Please do.
I believe that the fire district actually approved the cul-de-sac when it wasn't fully constructed, when it was going to be not a full circle, and they approved it at that point. So they would obviously approve a full cul-de-sac that meets all the code requirements.
But that meeting, why they approved that is our staff was not involved in that meeting. Mr. Klein went over to the fire department and got the approval by Scott Snyder, and Scott Snyder then sent a letter. So our staff didn't know anything about that. And correct me right, I asked that question here when they came in with the half. And you guys says, you don't know why. That was the question why I said the fire department should come to these meetings. But there was a meeting that I even asked, did staff meet with the fire department when they came in with the half cul-de-sac? And the question from staff was saying you did not.
Oh, we did have a meeting with Scott Schneider. He was
But-
there present during the site development meeting with respect to the half cul-de-sac. And then when they had created the full cul-de-sac, he said there's even less of an issue with respect to any of the backing up or turning from more than one point of access.
Then I must have been sleeping at that meeting because I sat here and asked you guys if that half cul-de-sac, if the fire department, we got a letter and saying they signed off on it, and you guys told us that you did not meet with them. So, that's fine.
Alderman Coles.
One thing that I'd like to see if this project goes through is you put on the lights that we have, like alongside the Wooddale Road near the
Prairie style lights?
oh, yeah, prairie style lights that we have here.
Yes.
That would be agreeable, and I'm looking forward to the city continuing those prairie-style
I
lights.
know,
from
well,
Irving
someday
Park
we'll
Road
get there.
South. Towards the second and first
Also, I
ward.
have another question. I know I don't think it can be done, but I had an idea to have Lot 1 and Lot 4, but would R1, you have to have 15,000 square feet, and R2, you have to have 10,000 square feet. I thought maybe we could get away with having 2 R1s on Lot 1 and 4. That would make the people across the street feel better with a bigger lot with a house, a bigger house on it than R2. That would satisfy maybe some of the people that live across the street. But I was trying to figure out where we could get the extra
20 feet.
2,000 square feet from, but all the lots are 80, there's one lot here, Lot 3 with 14,000 square feet, but I can't figure out where you could get it except from eliminating the retention ponds, but you can't do that because them have to be a certain amount of retention in order to take the water. So I guess it can't be done. So
May I respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please do.
That was one of the requests that my client did evaluate. In order to make the first two lots R1, what he would have to do is actually move the detention into the center or towards the front of the subdivision, away from the first two lots. So what will happen because of that is, one, there will actually be more tree loss. Number two, we'll lose that 20-foot of additional landscaping. And three, now you're gonna have two lots that abut Wooddale Road, as opposed to being set in a little bit in front of the, after the 20 feet and after the detention basins. But a good suggestion, Mr. Coles. It was one that my client evaluated, but without flip-flopping the lots in the detention basins, it really can't be done.
Any other questions? Alderman Knight.
Yeah, changing those two lots to R1, I think would constitute spot zoning, and we don't do that, or traditionally have not done that.
Alderman Lewton.
I want to respond to Alderman Ed Knipe, and my thinking on that is that if you wanted to do that, you can still make it R2 and make the two lots larger and not have spot zoning, because the ordinance, as I understand it, is that it's 80 feet or larger. So it could be 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 99, and it can even be 100 or more. It just can't be less than 80. So
That's
if you
exactly what we're
negotiate
doing.
with them to have two lots larger, and you can still have the R2. That's my opinion about your opinion that you brought up.
But if you look at the plat, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just making them larger than required. That's what they're proposing right here. It's nothing special or, you know. You just got two R2 zone lots that are larger than the required 10,000 square feet,
Okay,
as proposed. There's
Let me-
nothing different, nothing, you
let me
know.
ask him, because I don't have that information. Are some of these lots going to be larger than 80 feet?
If I can grab the plan and slide it over a little bit. There's two things that make a lot R2 under the city code. One is a square footage requirement. And Roger or Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a minimum of 10,000 square feet, and then it's an 80-foot of frontage. These lots, we have 13,000,
And 12.
12,000. Many of the lots, actually almost, they don't entirely, almost reach that R1 requirement of 15,000 square feet. All of them are in excess of 10,000. We don't have the frontage available to get to 100 foot of frontage to get to the magical R1. That's where we're short, but
No, my question was just, are they all exactly 80, or are any of them longer than 80?
They're 80 feet wide. The cul-de-sac lots are a minimum of 80, a little bit wider actually. But
In other words, you're saying one or two are 81 or 83?
no, they're all 80.
They're all exactly 80.
9 of the 12 are 80 feet, and the cul-de-sac lots are a little bit more than 80 feet, but they're on the cul-de-sac, and they need more than the 80 feet on the frontage in order to get the square footage.
How many linear feet are there? You just said there's more than 80. 82, 83, 84, what is it?
Well, there are these lots here, which are 94, 86, and 102.
Okay, well, that answers Mr. Knipe's question. They can be larger.
Yes.
So in essence, actually, one of them has an R1 characteristic, 104
Yes.
feet.
Yes.
So, okay,
Not the
doesn't
square
hit,
foot.
well, but I'm only trying to answer Alderman Cullis. I'm not, negotiating or anything. I am just trying to see where you're going and help you get there. And that is, you could do an R2 and say they might only build 11 homes because you negotiate the lot size to be in the middle of the R2 instead of the minimum R2. And that could take into consideration Alderman Cole's request. Now, that would, I understand, would have to be a future negotiations, and it would have to be that they're entered as an R2 with subject to negotiations on lot size. Dan, is that correct?
Actually, if I can interrupt here, because the issue
do.
before us tonight is the zoning of the property, and if I can refer to Mr. Bond.
What you've got on your agenda this evening is a rezoning because of the annexation, but a rezoning to an R2 for that 12-lot subdivision. So the issue that you're discussing, the issue that you're going to take action on this evening is the zoning component of it. You will, as a city council, then, if the matter goes forward, deal with, by way of annexation agreement, and the actual annexation of the property with respect to some of these particulars. But what you've got before you tonight is simply the zoning component of that.
Let me see if I understand what you say. We're voting on whether it's going to be an R2 or an R1, but we're not accepting 12 lots because we accept an R2. Yes or no?
Well, it's not that simple. The answer is you're voting on the zoning. The answer to that is yes, you're voting on the zoning. But to the extent that that zoning classification carries with it, they're asking for 12 lots. That's what they're allowed to do within that zoning classification.
Who makes that decision after there's
There's
zone
going to be a
2?
plat of subdivision that you as a board will come back, staff will review, approve it, and will be submitted to you for final approval.
Just so I understand, because I'm new at this.
Sure.
We vote today to go R2. They give us a proposal with 12, and we say, no, we want them a little bigger R2s. They can come back and show us one with 11, and then we can say yes to that, and we can say no to the 12. So the council and the zoning department still has interdiction in what they build, even in an R2.
Through the final plat, or through plat of subdivision, you do have that authority, yes. But what you're voting on this evening, or what you're considering, is the zoning classification. What is the zoning classification that this property is going to be encumbered with?
That's what I understand. I understand it better now, but I think what I'm answering, was trying to answer or embellish Ed's question, was that the zoning does not embed this plan. It can still be modified to Alderman Cole's wishes and your wishes afterwards. Going zone 2, R2, doesn't mean they automatically get 12 lots.
Well, they're asking for a 12-lot subdivision though here, so the motion we make is, it would be, this was turned down by the BZ and Planning Commission, and I am against bringing any more, any large subdivisions in under an R1, anything less than an R1. So if I may, I'd like to call the vote on this, unless Christine, you have a comment, please do.
I do. I am actually, I'm not opposed to this development. I do see it as a positive, so I'm looking to support it. However, I do have a question on the tree preservation. I looked at the plans the other night, and I don't see any plans on what trees are going to be preserved and which are not. And do you have that plan in place, or when do you plan on providing it?
We're going to go according to the city ordinance on that, which is save as many trees as possible. We're allowed to take down the trees that are in the roadway. We're allowed to take down the trees that are where the house sits, or within 6 feet of the house, I believe, or the driveway. Wherever we can, change the plans to save a tree if possible, and I think that's in the ordinance too, Roger, is it not? I mean, I'm
So in
pretty
other
much
words, you're saying that you've taken out the trees where 12 houses would go already?
No, we haven't. We've taken down the trees that were diseased, that were dead, that, for lack of a better way to explain it, there's 2 trees, and one's going to make it and one isn't. So I made a decision as to which one is not going to make it. So we've kept as many trees as possible. There's still a lot of trees that are in the roadway. I didn't take them down just because they're great big beautiful trees. I want to leave them as long as possible.
Okay, I'll allow one more comment.
But I'm not through yet.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the actual tree ordinance does not call for, whatever trees are in the footprint of the home allows you to take them out, and it
Right.
doesn't mandate replacement. But I would
No, it
like to
doesn't.
see replanting. Some of these are large trees. I'd like to see more than one replanted, for each removed, something like maybe 3 trees for each tree taken out, even in the footprint.
I think before building permits would be issued for any of the work, my client would be willing to submit to the city a plan showing, identifying which trees would be removed. And as part of that plan, he will include in there what additional trees, beyond what the ordinance provides for, requires, what he would replace in addition to that.
And
And that could be a condition of the permits.
okay, and he'll replace more than he removes.
Correct.
Okay, and secondly, in terms of impact fees, is there any scheduled that you already have planned out for the library, fire department, park, schools?
Not at this point. Tonight, we're only dealing with the rezoning.
Okay,
So that would be, my guess, part of the annexation agreement that I would receive from corporate counsel.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Cadala, and then Alderman Police, and then we'll have the vote. Oh, you know? Okay, Alderman Cadala.
I've got a lot. It's going to take a while, and I'm going to just apologize ahead of time. Most of what I have to say is actually in response to keeping an open mind and listening to Mr. Subak's presentation. Point number one, water. I think we all know that that area has a very long history of spotty water problems, pooling, puddling, runoff. So the developer's ditches, swales, concrete culverts, retention/detention ponds will at best prevent his homes from experiencing these problems. If this site truly is responsible for shedding water to the east towards, I believe that's Cedar, why are his retention ponds at the west end of the site, and how is that going to help? Particularly after I was told that elevations of foundations and road are going to carefully try to follow existing topography so as not to alter it so much as to be a detriment to most of the trees that are out of the building areas.
Who wants to
So-
respond, each one?
If you like.
Sure. Right now, the property's kind of split, and probably Mr. Ho can explain, but part of the water runs to the front, to the east of the property, and part of it runs west. The property will be regraded so that the water's collected in the rear. It's not being done by swales or ditches. It's being conveyed by storm sewers. And the storm sewers will convey it to the front of the detention basins, and there it will be controlled, and it'll be released, and it's going to be about the size of a tennis ball is how it's going to release from those. So there are 5 inlets along the rear of the property. So between the regrading and those inlets, that's how the water is going to be conveyed to the front. That's not inconsistent with trying to keep the grading match as closely as existing now so that everything gets raised up.
We're trying to, Alderman Cadella, we're trying to keep the existing topography as much as possible. Where it's not possible, we'll use tree wells to save the trees as much as we can. Some trees simply aren't going to make it just because we're going to change the water table a little bit for a lot of reasons. But we're doing the best we can out front to try and save everything that we can.
All right, and you're using the same conventional method that everybody else uses. You're taking stormwater that right now percolates naturally into the ground. You're throwing it, you're funneling it into concrete pipes where it collects all the pollutants off the roof, out of the air, off the roads, and you're putting it into retention basins where then you release it slowly. I understand that, but I see no benefit to the city at large. At best, a benefit to your homes and your property not experiencing flood problems. So I think I'm done with that part of the discussion. Trees. Trees, the roots absorb a lot more water than most of us may really think that they do. So every tree lost is gonna have an additional adverse impact as to how much water currently can percolate through here versus how much you're gonna have to send through your mechanical systems. Trees are also obviously critical for reducing air pollution, both noise as well as particulates falling from the air, due to the fact that we're under O'Hare airspace. The greater the density of a subdivision of a development, the more trees are going to come down. That's natural. The less dense, the less trees have The greater number of trees have a possibility of surviving. You're welcome to respond to that, but I think that that's pretty typical knowledge.
My response for the record is, I think you're bound by law to look at the factors that statute and the Wooddale ordinance provide for the rezoning. And I think we're kind of getting
Oh, I'm not done yet.
beyond those factors.
Okay.
So we're willing to comply with the Wooddale Tree Preservation Ordinance, and right now, there's nothing that prohibits us
Well,
under the county.
Understood, but one of the factors that I need to consider here is what is the benefit to the city, to the community, to the neighborhood, and I'm having a hard time finding these. Let me continue. Aesthetics. Alderman Subak used my term, which is fine. It's not my term only. I didn't coin it. Many of us have used the term gateway to Wooddale. Let's repeat the name of our city, Wooddale. Any construction will alter the essential characteristic of this area. That is undeniable, and even at R1, that's unavoidable. But R1 has a greater chance of altering to a lesser degree the characteristic of this neighborhood, of this one of the gateways to Wooddale. Once again,
Can I respond to that one?
you may.
I didn't steal it from you. I stole it from Alderman Shockey before you joined the council. He used that for the 4-lot subdivision, those exact words for the
Okay.
Newman property, which again, the city negotiated and he built under the county. And so he doesn't apply to the tree preservation ordinance. So that gentleman can start clear cutting because the city has no control over that piece of property. Sure, it has one house, but in the future, there's nothing that prevents it from having additional houses if they decide to annex in. There's nothing that the city has control over that property. You
You're-
lost that one.
Oh, well, no, actually I didn't, because your responses have nothing to do with what I said. The fact that you stole it from Alderman Shockey and not me has no bearing on this case whatsoever, and I'm not talking about another property, I'm talking about this one. The next one. I am not an expert on county zoning, but I believe this area is zoned under county as R4. County R4 is the highest density, single-family residential zoning that the county allows, and I think they require 100-foot frontage because they are going to require you to use well and septic, and you need to be able to separate those two. So I can be proven wrong on this one, but I don't have the county ordinance in front of me. So if you do, I'd welcome your response.
We do have the county ordinance.
Okay.
It is R4 under the county. The lot size requirements, if we have water and sewer service,
How are you going to get that again?
actually, if this is denied, we can petition the city for water and sewer, which
Okay.
would start with a staff recommendation and then go to a city council decision on whether or not they want to grant water and sewer to the city of Wooddale, to this project.
Okay.
You'd have the benefit of actually, you could charge a higher rate for the water and sewer for this property. So theoretically, it could be built under the county, and we could get sewer and water from the city of Wooddale. Under that, the lots must be 75 feet for this. My client did bring this project to Paul Haas, I think it's H-O-S-S. He's a zoning coordinator for the county, and he said the county would approve and support this subdivision with 12 lots, a couple minor changes on the roadway, as well as instead of a 25-foot setback, there would be a 30-foot setback for the homes.
Okay, so the county will allow it if the city gives you water and sewer. So you're not going to apply to the county tomorrow if you're denied tonight and begin construction. You're still held up until you get sewer and water to make this plan buildable. Just want to make sure, because it seemed that was an alternate means and method of developing the site is going through the county, but you still need city cooperation to have 80-foot lots in the county.
We don't need city cooperation for the 80-foot lots. We need city cooperation or a simple majority vote for approval of water and sewer to this.
That's still city cooperation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm not done. The next issue, 7 lots at R1 makes this project unbuildable, not economically feasible to the builder. 4+ years on the ZBA and now 6 months on city council. I still can't swallow that one. I believe there was a property a little bit south of here that that same developer came in asking for a higher density, and at one point it was not economically feasible, but at one point, at some time thereafter, it is now economically feasible, and that lot to the south has been re-subdivided as R1. So there, I ask while I may have empathy for the developer, if it truly is not economically feasible, the fact that it's not is not a good enough reason for the city to allow or to agree with the zoning change. So I guess what I'm just trying to do is take your main points that you made and make sure that everybody on the council understands to what level they decide, they're valid and have any bearing on the case. So that one, I've never been able to swallow.
That was a proposal where I think the difference between the R2 and the R1 was from 4 lots to 3 lots.
We went to 3 lots because we wanted to show the city that we could cooperate with them. And I never said that it wasn't economically feasible. At
A
this
few
point,
years
it is-
before at ZBA, you had said that on that one. I think you were trying to get 5 lots out of it at that time,
Yes,
too.
we were, yeah.
Mhm,
And it was
okay.
recommended we come back with 4, and we actually came back with 3 because the city wouldn't take the property across the street. So we tried to show some cooperation with the city and went with 3 lots. And it doesn't look good economically. It's very difficult.
And I
It's-
do
it's a-
understand
it's
that.
a
I
pre-
don't
it's a
doubt that
prelude.
that may be true, but it's
Okay.
not sure that that's the city's burden. All right, now we're talking about the benefit of 12 homes to Wooddale. I don't see the benefit of 12 homes to Wooddale, certainly not compared to 7. Those tax dollars aren't going to mean a lot. Either way, I see this as a potential losing proposition. If the taxes brought in per home is about $975, about $1,000 a year. It's going to be a neat trick to plow that road, to maintain that road, in 20 years to reconstruct that road, to maintain and continue to provide the water and sewer services. I wonder if there's enough money for potentially 24 students to attend the Wooddale Public Schools, which is another class and another set of teacher salaries based off the tax that this is going to bring in. So I'm not convinced that residential development is a winning proposition when it comes to tax dollars. And to that, I'm going to reference Rosemont.
With respect to the 7 homes, again, it doesn't get built. And so I understand the concerns about the density, but it's not an either or. It's a yes on the 12 or it doesn't go forward. And there won't be any of those tax dollars, the $1,000.
But I think
And
I just
when
said
you
that it's
look at-
probably a loser.
If I could finish.
Okay.
I think when you look at what other homes pay for the city of Wooddale, I think my last bill, $400 is what I paid for the city of Wooddale for these same services that these other houses are going to pay $1,000 for. And they got all the calls from myself, a couple calls for police because of raccoons in the area when my kids were scared. They picked up my garbage for $400 a year versus $1,000. The goal of any city has to be, what can we do to raise the housing stock as high as possible? And this will do that for that area. They're going to be all larger lots of the 2 pieces of property that abut it, which is the R3, which would be 65-foot lots. So R1, again, it is just not feasible, so it won't be built.
Okay, that's fine. The next thing you talked about, I think you used a numeric reference stating that given the area of this lot, if it were to have come in at R3, you essentially have enough area to create 20 lots. Is that what you said?
No, you missed.
Help me out. I want to understand what you were getting at there. What is the 20 lot reference?
The 20-lot references to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is what's adopted by the city as a guide for unincorporated portions as to what kind of density, what should it be zoned when it comes in. It doesn't go and say R1, R2, R3. It says medium density. Medium density is defined as 20 lots or 4 lots per acre, which gives him 20 lots. My reference to the R3 was if we were here tonight with a petition for R3, which again I don't think would be that crazy because of the fact that two parts of it abut R3, the petition would be for 16 homes. And it would be much more enjoyable for me and the city council to play the volley game of 16 is really dense, can you knock it down, and play the normal developer game. Unfortunately, my client, in this time, he showed his best hand to start with. So he didn't leave us with a lot of room with respect to eliminating lots. The R3 to the R2 is a 25% reduction in the number of lots. That's significant. That's not knocking one lot off on an R1 with a private road. This is a full cul-de-sac, full right-of-way street, all being improved by my client.
Okay, well, with all due respect to you and your use of semantics, I'm not sure that anybody on city council is interested in playing games, let alone developer games. So I appreciate that you didn't come in and do that. Still,
Is that one for this side or no? That's amazing. We're keeping track.
well, no, it was that was more of a question, but
Okay.
but back to the comprehensive land use, 20 residences. I mean, that would be that. While I appreciate you doing your homework and coming up with that reference, just to kind of clarify and put it into perspective, 20 in there would be a really neat trick without any roads by the time you have got the roads in there. I mean, once you do account for accessing the sites, you don't really have that acreage anymore. So that may have been a slightly skewed number to help your case. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just kind of throwing it out there for everybody else to hear. There is another thing that I think you talked about, and that is Wooddale needs to bring more economic development, more retail tax dollars in, and 12 houses is going to help that. Well, if you sit in an economic development class and study city planning, you don't need rooftops. You need regional traffic, which we have. So I don't buy that as a potential for economic growth in the city. And in fact, I'm gonna go back to what I said before. The tax dollars that is potentially could bring in, well, quite possibly greater than what a lot of residences in town are bringing in, still seems like a losing proposition to me. So I have a hard time with it for that.
May I respond?
Please.
There's more to economic development than traffic. If that was true, Irving Park Road would look fantastic right now, and I think everybody on this council and everybody in the crowd would say Irving Park Road does not look great right now with redevelopment, even though it has a ton of traffic on it.
I believe my point was that the people don't have to come from Wooddale, as long as they get to Wooddale, and we already have that. We've got other problems. We've got other reasons why we're not seeing economic development. It's not because we don't have enough single-family homes in the R2 residential districts. All right, the last thing I want to go over is you were kind enough to bring us a copy of the City of Wooddale Zoning Board of Appeals Rezoning Standards Review. This one's going to come down to just going over each one real quick. Number one, the existing uses and rezoning of nearby properties. Basically, what we're looking for here is how would the developer, upon asking for a variance or rezoning to the ZBA, respond to these issues? So the existing uses and rezoning of nearby properties. Well, first of all, the rezoning of nearby properties, we just rezoned a property which is pretty darn nearby to the south that Mr. Klein owns as R1. All the properties along Brookhurst are R1, and in my perfect world, as things develop along Wooddale Road, that should all be R1, once again, to maintain the essential characteristic of that neighborhood. The existing uses, I wasn't here when they were created, but I think R3 at Elizabeth Court is particularly dense for that area. And all the unincorporated land around here is actually constructed and maintained at a density much lower than Wooddale's R1. So I'm having a hard time seeing how that's not a total conflict.
Let's not forget the right-of-way that goes between the properties on Brookhurst. Those properties on Brookhurst, I could be wrong, I think it was 1972. I think most of those came in when the city needed a easement for the sewer plant. And so many of those came in under just a general agreement. I think many of those properties actually have city sewer and a lot of them are here tonight, but I don't know if they all have city water. I think a lot of them still have their wells. And they were, as part of that annexation back then, the city allowed them, in exchange for the easement, hey, come on in a general form, we'll give you city sewer, give us the easement to help our plant, but you don't need to take our water, which is things that now, that just doesn't happen anymore. It was very unique, I believe 1972. The property that came in as R1 is actually about 600 feet to the south of this. Green was maybe not the best color choice, but this abuts to R3 on two sides. So again, I think it's the classic, I'm not a land developer, but you would hear things called a transition area. Same that we saw in the Lennar development for the old Knox building, where they put the houses in the front and the townhouses in the back. They called it a transition area because where it was located. This is your classic transition. You can have all this be R1. You can even have these people, when they, if they ever come in as R1. And then it can transition to a strip of R2, and then you go into the R3. A very nice transition for the gateway to Wooddale.
Okay, well, I appreciate your history lesson on Brookhurst, but considering that those are all R1 and 130-foot lots, I don't know what the point of that story was. And furthermore, I'm not under the impression that you need to have transition areas. I don't think that R4 has to go to R3, has to go to R2, has to go to R1. I think you look at it by what the site calls for. So if I'm asking for R1 next to R3, I don't feel that that's inappropriate, and I certainly don't feel that it's absolutely necessary to have an R2 transition period. The next one, the extent to which property values are diminished by the existing zoning. This means nearby property values. That's debatable, and I'm not smart enough to debate that one. So this may not necessarily, hinder or reduce the adjoining properties unless something about this is really turning their backs on the surrounding properties, and unless this property is creating new water problems above and beyond what we have now. So, and I don't hold an engineering degree, so I can't tell you that this engineering is right and is definitely going to work. But the problem with that is I have encountered 50 or more engineers in my life who do have degrees and have been wrong on many occasions as to whether or not engineering water management works. After it's built, and it sometimes doesn't work and sometimes does. So I can't really debate that one. So you win there. The extent to which the existing zoning and or proposed zoning promotes the general health, safety, and welfare of the citizenry of the city. I don't know how 12 homes in R2 is any healthier than no homes in a wooded area. So I can't give you that one.
Again, when you attend those, and you will, but when you hear the comments on the annual State of Wooddale address, a lot of the comments are, gee, how come Wooddale, how come you're not expanding your borders? Wooddale, why'd you let Itasca take those properties along Wooddale Road so that we lost the McDonald's and some of the industrial, because but at some point, the council wasn't as aggressive as shoring up the borders to make sure. Don't take this as we're looking to go to Addison, but we lost some of the properties further close to Oak Meadows Drive that we let go to Addison as part of a boundary agreement. So again, it's just a question of whether or not the city council wants to continue to try to bring in as much as they can. And we're not asking for something like a townhouse development or a condominium that brings other issues. It's a single-family development that, again, is going to bring up numbers for Wooddale, and I think, in my opinion, be a positive.
All right. Well, I don't know that annexing to Addison is even a possibility, considering you're surrounded by so much of Wooddale right now. But so don't necessarily. I don't think you intended that as a threat, and I don't think I took it as a threat. But I don't even see it as a possibility. The relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship imposed upon the petitioner. Where is the relative gain to the public? I know you've said that nice houses and tax dollars and the possibility of economic development, but I don't see any of those things as either being real or certainly not outweighing the hardship that the petitioner has. And once again, not to be cold, because I do have empathy for the situation, but I don't see it's the city's responsibility to remedy that problem.
there's value in control. And right now, the city has no control over this, just like we have no control over many properties along Deer Path that still get all the city benefits of the plowing of the streets. We have no control over some of the Iroquois properties unless the city attorney has completed that project of forcing those properties to be annexed in. We have no control in the Fourth Ward for all those unincorporated properties, and that's often what you hear as far as those complaints is, hey, you know, how come they're allowed to park their work truck and their trailers in front? How come they're allowed to do this? And unfortunately, the response often is, it's unincorporated. There's other uses under this, and none of them are too terrible under the county, but some of them aren't as nice as a 12-lot subdivision. We can have a private club and lodges. We can have a private park, that'd probably be nice. Stables, wastewater treatment plants. So there's other things that you lose when you lose the control of this property. So you lose the tree preservation ordinance. So you do gain some things by having it come in, as well as right now, there's no stormwater management there. And maybe the Frawley's problem has been temporarily fixed with what we did, but some detention, larger than needed, is better than nothing. And you'll see as time goes on and more developments come in, you know, areas we thought we were going to have problems with, when the developments come in, it's a normal reaction, more ground cover, more issues. Actually, the stormwater has gotten better because of these detention basins that we're building, upstream and downstream. Actually, a good thing.
All I'm getting at is that I have 5-3 out of 8 issues. I have 5 that I completely disagree on, and if I was to use the rezoning standards review, the project loses 5-3. So
Okay, I really enjoy the give and take going on over here, but I think it's been about 40 minutes now that you've been discussing this.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing just for staff.
One quick one.
The last page, number 8, there's a typo. It should be for the proposed use, so that's a free one for staff. We didn't catch it in the first 20 years.
I do need to make the motion a positive one, so even though I'm against it, so I will make the motion that we approve case number 07-V8 Klein Homes at 5 North 101 and 5 North 125 Wooddale Road to rezone from annexation R1 to R2 to allow a 12-lot subdivision. Do I have a second?
Second.
Would the minute taker please call the roll, please?
Alderman Wesley?
No.
Alderman Police?
Yes.
Alderman Lewiton?
No.
Alderman Shockey?
No?
Alderman Cadella?
no.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Coles?
Yes.
Alderman Knipe?
Yes.
That's 4-4.
Needs a supermajority.
Gentlemen and lady, we have a tie vote.
Doesn't, okay.
So it goes on to the full committee without a recommendation.
Full council, do you want my full presentation at the next city council meeting?
No?
Okay. Willing to do it.
It
Thank
was
you for your-
excellent, it was excellent, but
Thank you for your consideration.
time is of essence. Yes. Does anybody want to leave at this point? Do you want one? Okay, a quick 5-minute recess, please.
No, send him home. Send him home. I don't know why we had him here.
Who?
Attorney.
Telecommunication ordinance.
You guys say that. He first came with the hat. and You guys told me. Oh, shit. I'm going to pull those minutes.
Lucio.
You guys made us. No, but not on,
I mean, it goes to the council now.
not on the half moon, you
Yes
did.
or no recommendation?
Because I asked the question, why does the fire?
They will need a supermajority.
Because you never knew that. This guy said the same thing.
Here is included in the vote on that one, so it's need 6.
That's why they weren't here tonight. They'll change what they're gonna ask for before.
Well, that's the hope. That's we want R1 under there.
And the last one I got to do with that.
Last one, the half moon, they sent us a letter saying they approved the half moon. I asked John, did I not ask you last meeting when they came with the half moon that you have no clue why the fire department signed off on this because you did not know about it?
I said he's hanging around.
Case closed.
I met with the fire, but I saw Scott yesterday. I said,
But my question is, I understand this was passed, but the half moon, when I asked you that, when they sent the letter on the half moon, you told me you didn't meet with the fire department when they permitted the first half.
I
moon.
personally didn't
But
talk about
the
it.
fire, but the, you
John
guys
did.
said.
I did.
But you were not at that meeting, but I got from John saying you knew nothing about that letter.
I didn't.
Right, but I'm just saying, that's what I went by, but you were not here at that half moon.
Well, we had meetings with the fire district on all aspects of this development.
I'm just saying, a half moon was discussed that we got a letter, and you told me you didn't know anything about the letter.
When I talked to Scott yesterday and asked him specifically he was gonna come tonight, he said, I don't need to go, I've already approved it.
Right, but I didn't see the letter saying that.
Thank you for consideration.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't ask him to come tonight is because there was no issue with the subdivision.
But then why don't we hear the first presentation they did with the half moon? Because John sat here and said he knew nothing about the letter. and the half moon. That's what I'm trying to bring up here.
Well, I'm sorry about that aspect of it, but they were involved in a site review meeting when the fire was involved. And that's when Scott sent over the letter afterwards saying that they had no.
Then I understand that. But then if that's the case and you were involved with him in a half moon, then John did not belong being here at that meeting. You belong being at this meeting.
To be honest, I don't remember what the situation was, why I wasn't at the meeting at that one, but whatever it was, I know there was a reason why I couldn't be there.
Okay.
Can't take the excitement.
That just pissed me off. You fucking totally lied to me. The building department. No problem. I figure I probably, for what I paid you tonight, we got a bad guy coming.
My head looks very big on camera, and I'm not sure why. I'll call you.
Okay,
Okay.
call me.
What's the transaction? How much will it spend?
I don't know yet.
No? Can I come back for that and listen?
Sure. He's coming tonight.
Not bad.
And he said, well, now they deny it.